Welcome to the next lecture. In this lecture, we're going to be taking this idea of Rome's fingers in the pie to a new level. The deeper we go into these lectures, the clearer it becomes that we are living in critical times. Times that have never been seen before in history. When I was preparing this lecture and working on how to explain the finger in the pie, I thought, well, maybe I can do a lecture on Christianity and one on Islam and maybe one on Hinduism. And the more I looked at it, the more I realized it's actually the same thing. You see, this lecture is called Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Judaism, etc. All roads lead to Rome. What we need to find out is the Bible really correct when it says that the whole world wandered after the beast? It also speaks about be careful that no man deceive you. It speaks about be careful of whoring after other gods, the wine of Babylon. And in Revelation 18, the Bible speaks about come out of her, my people. And this morning's subject is heavy on the heart, as have the other been. Truth is independent of opinion. As was in the case in the other lectures, by its very definition, truth is intolerant of error. Every aspect of it petitioning the conscience for acknowledgement. You, however, as I do, hold the key to either admit or reject this information. If we had done these lectures 10 or 12, maybe 15 years ago, we would have had to look in the Bible and say, well, the Bible says this is what's going to happen in future. Now all we have to do is say, well, that's what the Bible says. Let's look into the world and see whether history, CNN, the headlines, confirm what the Bible says. We're going to continue on with this idea and this message that's given to us in Revelation about the war that took place in heaven. Revelation 12 verses 7 to 9 say, and there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not. Now, what happened to this dragon is explained in verse number 9. It says, and the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth, how much? The whole world. And he was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Isaiah told us in Isaiah 14 verses 12 to 14, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? For thou hast said in thy heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Lucifer had an eye problem. I will this, I will that, I will this. It's basically what we today know as ego. And in Revelation 12 verse 9 it says that he was cast down into the earth and his angels were cast down with him. And his angels today are what we know as demons, fallen angels. Those are the set of angels which the New Age movement or the people that are innocently involved in the New Age movement are dealing with it with them, and they don't even know it. You've got to be very careful when you're dealing with angels. One set works with heavenly things and one set fell out of heaven. And that's why Jesus said to his disciples when they asked, what must we watch for to see that we're coming to the end of the world? And Jesus' very first answer was, be careful that no man deceive you. So, Judges in the Old Testament, in Judges 2 verses 17, speaks about whoring after other gods. Read it with me. And yet they would not hearken unto their judges, but they went whoring after other gods, and bowed themselves unto them. They turned quickly out of the way which their fathers had walked in, obeying the commandments of the Lord, but they did not so. Here's an indication of a group of people that were supposed to walk as their fathers had done, facing the west, facing the Shekinah glory, facing Yahweh, the Ark of the Covenant, the Holy of Holies. And they turned and started to whore after other gods. This is a type of biblical prostitution, spiritual prostitution, whoring after other gods, and obeying not the Lord's commandments. This is fulfilled in Revelation 18, verse 3, where it speaks about all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. This is speaking about Babylon and about Rome. It continues and it says, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. Just stop for a moment and have a look again. How much of the world? All nations have drunk of the wrath of her fornication. And if this is the case, then we need to be able to say, well, we looked into Christianity, but what about the other religions? How does this whole deception work? Deception, you must remember, is a terrible thing. It is like going to the autobank, the ATM or the teller machine of the bank, and wanting to draw money. You walk up to the bank, it looks like the bank. If you knock it, it sounds like the bank. It feels like the bank. It even beeps like the bank. Everything is fine. It looks like you wouldn't consider that it possibly wouldn't be a bank. It's a normal stock standard ATM. But when you put your card in and try and withdraw money, you realize that somebody has gone and put on a false screen to deceive you into believing something that looked, sounded, felt, and even it seemed right to you. But when you try and get your money out, you've been deceived. Now people often say, well, I'm not deceived. See, the problem with that statement is that's exactly how deceived people think. I didn't believe I was deceived. Deception is a type of sleepiness. It's a type of being asleep that you only realize you were asleep is when you wake up. Only this morning when the alarm clock went off did I realize that I had actually fallen asleep. In the same way, it's only when the people wake up out of deception that they realize that they were deceived. This is Satan's greatest method of getting people to do something that he wants us to do, and we actually don't know what we're doing. So, how does this deception filter into the other religions? Well, let's have a look. What are the other religions? This book cover by Christopher H. Partridge, or he's the editor of this book, speaks about the introduction to world religions. Which are the main world religions? On that book you can see there's a hand of a monk which is pulling the prayer beads through his fingers. This is a type of ritual, I would say, or a ceremony that you would do. The prayer beads, as you would pull them through your fingers, you would say a prayer and then another prayer and another prayer. Often done both, interestingly enough, with Buddhists and with Catholics. We'll look into that a bit later. Is there somehow a link between Buddhism and Catholicism? Well, adherence.com is a famous website which explains how many people there are that adhere to a certain religion. How many Catholics are there? How many Protestants are there? How many New Apostolics are there? How many Mormons are there? It's interesting to realize that the New Apostolic Church, which has about 10 odd million people, is a similar size to the Mormons, who have got about 14 million people. Is a similar size to the Seventh-day Adventists, who have got 14 to 16 million people around the world. These figures can be determined from various sources, but when it's collated and put together, adherence.com splits it up into this pie graph. It says that 33% of the world's population belongs to Christianity. 21% belongs to Islam. There's a 16% slice which is the non-religious. That's the agnostics, the atheists, the secular humanists, etc. People that are answering to none or no religion. Then there's a 14% slice which is the portion of the population that focuses on Hinduism. 6% which is African traditional and primal indigenous type religions. Another 6% on Chinese traditional, and then another 6% which belong to Buddhism. 0.22% Judaism, Sikhism at 0.03%, and then a slice of other. Those are people that don't fit into any of these groups. Now the Bible says the whole world will wander after the beast. So looking at that pie graph, we should be able to see an influence in pretty much every single one of those. Adherence.com also explains that there were